You are listening to the Young Black Travelers podcast. Black voices conversing in experiential travel, dedicated to a global community of travelers. So be bold, be inspired, be spontaneous. We are YBT. Hey everyone, we are at Young Black Travelers. It is your girl Krisan, the podcast lead for Young Black Travelers, and I am so excited to have this special guest on today. You're in for a real treat. I have Antonio here, so I'll let him introduce himself and his passion um, and where he's from. So, Antonio, please take the floor.
Yes, I'm very excited to be here. I'm very happy to share a little bit of my travels, my trips, and my work at Diaspora.Black. I'm from Brazil. I'm from Salvador de Bahia. Some of you may have heard about it. It's the blackest city outside Africa in the world, so it's a pretty amazing place to be and to discover. I am a journalist, and it's been like 80 years ago. I founded Diaspora.Black. It's a travel startup focused on Black culture in Brazil and other places in the world, trying to connect the diaspora, the African diaspora culture all over the world. So through travel, through tourism, and
Mm.
it's been quite a journey. And I'm happy to share it with you here today.
Oh, and we're so excited to have you on to explain everything. But I'm curious, what made you start Diaspora Black in the first place?
Well, we started it because we wanted to travel to different cities, and we didn't want to. I mean, we wanted to travel to different cities, and we wanted to discover Black culture in these cities, but we couldn't find it in the traditional guide, travel guides or websites. I mean, it was harder to find out the best experiences connecting our history, our
Mm.
legacy. This is one of the reasons. The other one is that we face a different discrimination situations in tourism services such as the hotels, the Airbnbs, and other places. So we wanted to create an ecosystem and a platform where we could be and feel safe while traveling and trying to share these experiences where we could where we could connect to hosts that could share their places, share a bit of their experiences in different cities, and we and so we wanted to feel safe and not how can I say it, not exposed to these kind of
Mm.
discriminations that we feel in other days.
That's so relatable, and I appreciate what you're doing, Diaspora Black, because as a diaspora myself, it's very hard to find history of where you come from. It's just scattered and in between. So anyone who's able to put it all together collectively and have a unity of different experiences that discuss how we are influential in a country is mm, admirable, because that's a very tough feat, given the limited resources we usually get. But I'm excited to dive in and more on um, Black history of Brazil from your lens. It is Black history here in the United States, no matter what anyone wants to say. It's very dear to us as Black travelers to celebrate and learn where we're coming from. So, as we dive on onto our break, we're going to dive on in more into the Brazilian lens from Black history of Brazil when we get back. And we're back, guys. We're back from our break. I hope you did not go too far, because we're about to dive on into the main conversation of Black history in Brazil from a local Brazilian lens. And he's from Diaspora Black, as he told us in the intro. So, how has African traditions influenced the Brazilian culture, especially in your region, Bahia?
Well, this is a great question. I mean, we could take all night long talking about that because some people might not know, but Brazil is mostly a black country. I mean, 54% of our population is Afro-descendant. I mean, are
Mm,
black in different tones of colors, but we are mostly black population here. And that's, of course, due to the slavery time. We've been one of the biggest wharf in the whole colonial history, especially in Rio de Janeiro and in Salvador. These both cities were the main colonial cities at that time. They received a lot of ships from different parts in Africa, and uh, and these cities, Rio and Salvador, are very culturally alive, very culturally vibrant, and most of that culture is, in their essence, it's a direct heritage from these African traditions, mostly from what today we call Angola, Nigeria, Benin, and also Mozambique, but mostly. Especially in Salvador, we are very connected to the Yoruba traditions. Uh, it really shaped who we are, the beliefs we have, the values, the core values that we have as persons, as individuals, but also as a society. I mean, we love to dance, we love to talk, we love to listen to music. We speak in a way with a lot of images, so many metaphors. So it's impregnating who we are right now. I mean, most of what you probably heard about Brazil regarding samba, regarding capoeira, the carnival, all these
mhm.
main cultural manifestations, are attached in some ways to our black history, our black legacy. And we are very proud of it right now. And this is a very important moment to share it because we have so many in common when we think about this heritage
Mhm.
and our history that I wanted it to be more well known abroad and not only here in Brazil.
I know, and I see so many images, and of course, that diaspora love color, and that seems to be the main attraction when people discuss about Brazil, the color, just the life, the energy that you
The
feel.
joy,
Yeah, the
yes,
joy. Yes, you can feel the
yes.
joy of like the proudness, even of like just being able to still carry on a lot of traditions and hold on to it and celebrate it in a way that's just a joy to bring on for generations. But
Yeah,
is there
yeah.
any other historic sites that you think best explain some of the Black history in Brazil?
Yes, yes, there are. Brazil is a huge country, so in
Hmm.
different parts of it, we have these African influence and African traditions all over the country, but mostly, as I said, in Rio, in Salvador, but also São Luís, which is more on north.
Hmm.
And even in Amazonia, we have what we call Quilombos.
Hmm.
There are like Maroon communities that are very traditional, and we have all over the country. So these communities, it's one of these historic sites that you can see how we could preserve the African traditions in our way. So these communities are communities from people who run away from their slave owners or from their landowners and created different communities inside the country close to rivers with difficult access at that time. And then for generations, they stood on these places. But also, some of the Quilombos are based on what it used to be the farms. So they got the title of the land, the property
Mm,
of the land, as communities that were there for generations. So they could resist on these places and create their own traditions and communities. So this is a great experience to go there and see some of these quilombos. They have their own language. They have specific songs that they have specific cultural parties, manifestations that they have for different seasons. So it's very touching and rich to get to know these communities and get connected to how they see the world. They are very connected to the nature somehow.
Mm-hmm.
They try to create different strategies to have a sustainability in their communities, like agriculture, but also tourism, receiving guests to share their knowledge. So this is a very vibrant and vivid way to understand a little bit of our history, but also to connect with their ancestrality. But regarding the more urban cities, I mean, the urban
Mm-hmm.
sites that we could think about Black history in Brazil, we have around these cities like Rio de Janeiro and
Mm-hmm.
Salvador, we have different old cities, old historic cities, and also some ruins of these plantations, some ruins, and where nowadays we can go and tell our versions of the story. We can tell what happened on these places, but through our lens, and how these moments, these places, kind of shaped the society how we know it nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So in Salvador, it's everywhere in the streets. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can see Yoruba goddess like the Orishas. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
have statues of them in the streets.
Wow.
We have, yeah, it's kind of unique place, and we celebrate it very strongly, and we have the presence in our spiritual beliefs, in our religious traditions, and so in different places where you can walk around it, either in Salvador or in Rio, you're gonna see. In Rio, we have a place that is called Valongo Wharf,
Okay.
which is the ruins of the most important and bigger enslaved port of the colonial time. So from this site, we received more than 3 million persons.
Mm.
So it was a huge place at that time, and during the history, the landowners and the rich guys at that time, the white guys at that time,
Mm-hmm.
they tried to cover these places in different ways. I mean, to erase that part of the history, but it came after research and a lot of renovations. So it came back to the surface, and we could take a look at the story and tell the story from a different perspective. It's a very we can see the ruins over there, and it's in a very culturally important neighborhood that we call Little Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you must come to understand why we call Little Africa.
I
There are
must.
so many stories.
But that's very important too. The way that you preserve the land and property to carry on, because a lot of times uh, you have industries like tourist industries that are willing to give that up for the sake of money. And usually they go after a certain demographic, right? So I know the states sometimes, especially in the South, they try to preserve little plantations or titles that maybe a slave owner gets a slave, and they fight tooth and nail over here to keep it. So that's
We
great
fight
that
it
you're able
too.
to, yeah, fight. It's always a fight, right?
It's
But I'm
always a
glad to,
fight.
it's always a fight, but it's worth fighting because you get to, like the Colombos are able to not only have property, but they keep in traditions, the tongues, everything. And even when the ruins and stuff or more tourists may come more than probably Colombos, they are still able to preserve what is very important, at least of Black history, and the importance of how they are influencing Brazil as a whole. So that's
Yeah,
commendable. They're able to do that a lot. Hmm.
it's a very recent achievement from our
Hmm.
society, our Black society here, our Black social movements, to have the recognition of these places, to have the preservation of these places, especially the Quilombos, to have the title of the the property of the land. It's been a long fight from many decades, like 3 decades, 4 decades. They were trying to get that title, the guarantee that they have the property of the land.
Mm.
This has been a struggle, and now from the last 10 years or less, uh, we've been we've achieved the sorry so, and most recently, in the last
Mhm.
10 years or less, we could really start talking about it in a more open space, public space. I mean, with more voices talking about it in journals, in the TV, with documentaries, with audiovisual. So, I mean, it has become more known for the society that this is a patrimony, this is an heritage, this is
Mhm.
something that we need to value, and we need to research and go deeper so we can
Mhm.
recognize our story. So this is something that is still a fight, but we
Yeah.
feel that nowadays we have some achievements, and we can talk about it and share these stories that were hiding for such a long time.
Yeah, and there's momentum too. Like with the technology right now, people are more aware with this podcast and with the newsletters and everything. People are more aware in their travels to not only travel to vacay, but to be socially conscious of where they're going and finding root of who they are or who they're connected to or should be attributing to when they're going to another country. So Diaspora Black is doing a great job just showcasing that and bringing awareness where it needs to be because momentum will bring that change faster,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah.
Um,
Thanks for that. I mean,
oh, no
it's
problem.
really
It's a
it's
great
been a
work.
yeah, it's been a journey. I mean, but as we said before, I mean, we wanted to travel and see ourselves where we are. I mean, and try to connect the local history with our history in some ways. And for a long time, Brazil was promoted as a white country, and we said this is not who we are for sure.
Mm.
I mean, people should know us more, and when people come here, some of them get more surprised, and to see how we are, how we face, and how we dance. I mean, things that become more popular or famous from Brazil. It comes from our African origins. It comes from our blackness, and we are very proud of it.
Oh, I can feel the proudness in every photo that I see, and I can't wait to experience it for myself. From what the photo I see, and even some from our team that been to Brazil, of course, Carnival is the touching point for a lot of people to start thinking about what Brazil is. And I remember one of my friends went to Carnival and noticed a float. I don't know if you probably remember this, a float that was showcasing, um, how they came from slavery and also just showcasing the Black history and how influential they are to Brazil on that float. I think it was a recent one. So even the entertainment and the arts that people would think is more the commercialized way for tourists to know Brazil is starting to showcase the Black history. But I am curious about because this is a Brazilian lens. How do you feel in Brazil the representation of Black culture today? Do you feel that it's being well represented in Brazil? Do you feel like it's still um, capped a little bit with a standard or something? Or do you feel like you're celebrated in Brazil in a way that feels like, okay, I'm recognized? People are paying attention to Black history. Or do you still feel that there's room for growth there?
Definitely, there is a lot of room for growth. I mean, for it's been such a long time that we were invisible for most of our production, or we didn't have any recognition at all. Even so, we feel that there is like a trauma or like a deep pain regarding the appropriation of our culture that became more national symbols, or that became very culturally attached to Brazil, but not recognizing that this is a Black cultural element. I mean, so we feel that from times to times in our history, that's what it happens. It happened with the
Mm,
samba. It happened with the samba that we know. It was prohibited. It's like it's been like 100 years or less that it's been
mm.
allowed it to be played in the streets or in the
Wow.
clubs, because it used to be prohibited as a Black music, or
Mm,
or and like the same for capoeira and the same for the religion. They were prohibited for a long time because they were something that came from Black people, and everything that came from Black people was considered something marginal or illegal, or something that would not have value. So this perception for a long time has been present in our formation as a society,
mm,
and it's been really recently that we said no, that we can't accept that anymore. I mean, after a long time of struggle from different movements, we kind of achieved this momentum, as you mentioned, that we could stand and say
mm,
we want to be more recognized from what we've contributed to this country, of how we made it this country be what it is, from even the economics, but also culturally. And so I think we still we are present nowadays. I mean, we have
mhm.
evolved in I mean, in a huge speed the last 10 years. We see Black actors and actresses in the
Yes.
screen. We see it we see Black artists creating with more visibility. We see some representativity in different spaces, but it's always something that it could be more. It can't
Mm,
not just be something to pretend, or something to state a message from these institutions, but more than that, we need it to be representative as 50%. I mean, if we are 50%, we need to see
mhm,
50% of
mhm.
all the arts, all the movies, all the
Yes.
workers in the places. And this is something that we are still there is a long road to drive
Yeah.
to cross. But as you mentioned, Carnival. I mean, that's these last 10 years we had a lot of Black histories emerging in the Carnival as the main theme of different samba schools, and it's beautiful because people recognize themselves. These are stories that most of the people didn't know about, didn't
Mm,
know the references of the history, but now it is becoming more and more known, and people are understanding that this is not something to hide, or not something to be ashamed of, but in the opposite, we should be very proud of what we were able to build in such a discrimination
yeah,
scenario contest. Yes.
man. We definitely should be 50%. And I guess everyone in diaspora is like the same thing, right? We're just like we want to be represented just the bare minimum. Like if it's 50%, just have
Yes.
50%. And like you mentioned, like there's so many artists and everything that are trying to give that representation proudly too. They're not hiding it. They have the afros, they have everything. They're trying to do what they can, but of course, there's always room for more. So the more people talk about it, the more Diaspora Black and other organizations bring it up to the light. I think that momentum again will bring about change even faster than we think of. Uh, but there are a lot of gems that we may know of outside of Brazil, but I think there are gems that we may not know too much about. There's food, of course. There's food that we're probably thinking about that are similar to Caribbean or African roots. I know you mentioned the cabaret, which is, I think, the martial arts, if I not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of hidden gems that I feel like even with pictures, maybe people don't really talk about it, or maybe they don't know. So, is there anything with the cuisine, with the martial arts, or any other hidden gems that you would like to share to others from your lens that you think people may not know about in terms of the Black history in Brazil?
Well, there are some. It's hard to pick one or two to share here, but I think there is something that you might know. There is cachaça. Cachaça is
Mm,
the alcohol drink that we have.
yes.
It was for a long time. It was considered not a very sophisticated drink, but that's the alcohol drink that we use to do the caipirinhas, which has become the most famous Brazilian drink. That's wherever you go in Brazil, you may order a caipirinha. It's
Mm,
like margarita or something, or tequila. It's the cachaça is for Brazil what we call tequila in Mexico. So
okay.
everywhere you go, you can find it. But it's connected to our history as well. I mean, it was the alcohol that the enslaved people could make it by their own selves. With the sugar
Hmm.
cane. So they started doing it, and so we have different brands right now, different
Okay.
sophisticated cachaças, and you may taste it with different flavors. So it's really good if you wanna to start the
Okay.
night.
Noted.
You should taste the cachaça, different types of cachaça. For food, for sure, muqueca is the most
Okay.
tradition dish that we have, especially in Salvador. It's really on the roots of African cuisine because it's mostly seafood, especially shrimp. That's
Mm,
the best one, and it's there is a lot of palm oil. I mean, that's one of the
okay.
main ingredients of the dish is the palm oil. So if you come here, you need to taste it. There is this dish in every city you go, but it comes from Salvador, and you
Okay.
may taste it. In Salvador, we have also acarajé, which also comes from African roots.
Mm,
It's called in Nigeria. It's kind of an akara, but it's
okay.
different here. It's hot. It's
Oh, okay.
also there is some other ingredients on it. So there is a lot to taste here. It's very spicy. The food. Maybe
I
you
love to
have a
hear
lot of
that.
different peppers. Yeah.
I love to hear
Yes.
that.
So I mean, I'm here. I'm just sharing some highlights, but
Oh, there
there are
must be
other
plenty
gems.
of dishes. I for sure.
Yes,
Oh my
yes. We have a
goodness.
lot of seafood. I think you would love it. It's
Mm,
fresh and we have different flavors on it. So even in the Amazonia, the fishes over there are delicious, and I mean it's a very diverse country, so you may see different elements every in different regions. So São Luís is also a very beautiful
mm.
city, very historical city with a lot of reggae music. I mean, we
Okay.
love reggae. Yes,
Oh, because I'm
yes.
Jamaican, so that warms my heart a little bit to hear that reggae is everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. This is something that people generally doesn't associate it to Brazil, but we
Mm.
do have here, especially in São Luís, in the north of Brazil, and in Bahia. There are some cities that also are very connected to the reggae music.
Wow, okay. And so wow, that's a lot. I know there's more, but I know it's like we'll be here for days. But before we close this big conversation, there is something that I'm personally curious about. The capoeira, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. The black martial art.
Capoeira.
Yeah, capoeira. Right. Okay.
Yes.
I'm gonna practice it tonight, and I'll do it justice when I get to Brazil. But it's the black martial arts, and I'm curious as to, and I'll see clips online as well of like how they're just swinging their legs. like it's just synchronized and it's so beautiful. Listeners, watchers, if you ever get to watch a video of it, it's really like eye catching. It's different. So I wonder if you could just touch upon like its roots, and its importance into the Brazilian culture.
Yes, this is amazing how capoeira has become very well known outside Brazil. I mean, there are some groups that teach capoeira everywhere in the U.S., in Europe as well. So it has grown. It has become something really special in the world. But it started here during the slavery time. It was the martial arts that we teached one each other to have more uh, some movement, some flexibility and agility to respond to any kind of aggression, especially from the policy or from the landowners. So this was the movements and attack and defense. This dance, it was something that they didn't know, they didn't ever seen before. So that was like one of the mystery of it. So we teach it one of each other in our community, so we
Mm-hmm.
were prepared to face any kind of attack from either any authority or either anyone who wanted to discriminate us. So it was prohibited for a long time because it
Wow.
was associated as something like that we call here vagabundos. It would be like
Wow.
something like uh, th- those who are marginals, those who doesn't want anything, who doesn't do anything. After the abolition, there was no job for us, there was no
Wow.
land for us, there was no school for us. So many of us stayed walking on the streets,
Wow.
and that's the word that they use it to point to us. So he is a vagabundo. He doesn't do anything.
Wow.
He is, and all the our culture was associated to that word as well, to that marginality, to something that should be prohibited. So
Mm.
capoeira was one of these things. The samba was another. The religious was another, and the capoeira. But even it was persecuted for a long time as the samba, it still grow. It still grew for generations. People were talking and sharing it one to another.
Mm-hmm.
And one strategy that they had to make it possible to teach and learn and share that movement was to say that it was not a fight, it was a dance, it was a play,
Okay.
a play game, like something that they did it for fun. So for a long time it was considered not a martial art but just a dance or a game where both of them were just dialoguing in the movements.
Mm-hmm.
So if you pay attention, the movements sometimes they are not aggressive. That's not the intention of it. Mostly, it's more to uh, how can I say it? Stay out of problem. I mean
Mm-hmm.
to uh, evade if something happens, and so the movements are very, they can be very intense, they can be very aggressive, but that's not the main intention. It's not to attack, it's mostly to defend ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
uh, so that's why they use it to say no, it's just a dance. We have the ginga. The word
Mm-hmm.
ginga comes from the capoeira, and so
Wow.
it grew a lot. There are different conceptions of capoeira. There is a group that is more traditional, there is another one that is more connected to the martial arts, but it's there is the song. So it's besides all that, it's also a moment where we can get together. So
Mm.
it was also a way to get connected one with the other brother that is side by side with you, learning that uh, or making the movements or fighting. So it created an atmosphere of a group, a community. So
Wow.
the the classes have that intention. I mean, it's not about teaching the fight, the martial arts. It's about creating a space where we can be together and share common values about our history, about how to defend ourselves, about how to know better of ourselves, because you need to know a lot of your body, and you need to know how to use your strength. So these are metaphors that you learn while uh, practicing capoeira.
Wow, that's so beautiful to hear that even when there's a resistance and demonizing those that were practicing it, uh it just remits in different ways throughout the time, like a dance or where it was being more of a resistant, it's more of just building a community, how it's still able to translate the Black history and the importance of it through its dance and through its motions and what it's trying to convey. So that's beautiful to see how it moved through time to exist and still be with us today, which speaks about a lot of Brazil and a lot of like Salvador and Bahia and even San
Yes,
Luis.
yes.
Like they find ways to survive and to thrive
That's
wherever part of the era they are, which is so
You
beautiful
really
to
got
see.
it. You really got the Brazilian essence. I mean, it's resistance and resilience above all. I mean, we find a way to survive and to create a space where we can feel comfortable between ourselves and share it. So, I mean, even though there is a lot of bad things, persecutions, but we find a way. We
Mm.
create a way, and this is really beautiful.
It's beautiful. It shows for itself the work and the trials and tribulations, and there's it shows for itself. It shows beauty and the joy of just you know just seeing where everything came from and where we are today and what we will see in the future for the generations. But I learned so much from this main conversation. Thank you for sharing Black history of Brazil from your lens. So that's it for
I
the main
appreciate.
conversation. This is yeah,
I
this is
just want
so
to invite
educational.
everyone. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just want to invite everyone to come because
Hmm.
that's the beauty of Black travelers. I mean, when we go to another place and connect with that history, I mean, it makes us feel more powerful somehow. I mean, to
Mm.
recognize the other strategies to survive and achieve different things. So
Yes,
come
so
here to discover.
come. Just come and experience everything we just talked about for yourself. I think that's the best way to learn is to experience. So I encourage you, watchers and listeners, come to Brazil. Come to Brazil, have a local show you the true nature and the Black history and how we shape the world. And when we come back from this awesome main conversation, we're just gonna close out and um, Antonio will share his handles or where to connect with him. We'll play a little game because we like to play games, and we'll just give any other closing statements. So stay tuned, everyone. And we're back, everyone, once again, Young Black Travelers. My goodness, what a great conversation I had with Antonio, a local in Brazil, just giving a sense of Black history and really the messaging of like the momentum of change and how Brazilians just maneuver themselves through time to make sure that history stays alive and not just alive, but vibrant and well. And I appreciate Antonio Diaspora Black and their contributions to that. So, if you don't mind, if you could share, how can people connect with Diaspora Black or you, or both? How can they connect with you, learn more about what you're doing in Brazil, how they can get involved or support? Do share with our listeners and watchers.
It would be great to talk with you all and to share a little more of what we do in Brazil and other countries as well. I mean, just come and our website, you can easily find us. It's diaspora.black. You can just
Hmm.
write it and you'll see a bit of our work. And we are in social media as well, Instagram. We would easily answer you and start a conversation, and you can tell us what they're looking for, and we will figure it out together, think together where are the best places you could go and with who.
Yeah. So make sure you write down that handle, write down the website, get in touch with Antonio, and it's an amazing site. It's very filled. You will find something. Okay, trust me. But thank you for sharing that to our listeners and watchers. So, like I said, we're gonna play a little game. Um, but sometimes my games are a little hard. But for you, it'll be pretty easy because you are born and raised in Brazil, so you will know the best places for these things. So it's just a question of which part of Brazil for each category. So you'll pick which part or which restaurant or which place would be the best for whichever category I spell out. Are you ready?
I am ready. I hope I'm not too attached to my core and just to my preferences. But yeah, for sure, it will be interesting to answer the game.
It's okay to be a little biased, you're the expert. So
Yeah.
we trust your judgment. So okay, which part of Brazil or which restaurant would you recommend for food? Like if you pick one place that you must go.
um,
I
you
know it's hard.
definitely would. Yeah, one place, one restaurant is really hard, but you definitely would go to Salvador,
Hmm.
taste the muqueca and taste the foods. The one place that I truly recommend is Zanzibar. It's a very
Ooh,
beautiful restaurant in Old Center in Salvador, which with different African Brazilian dishes. It's delicious.
wow. It almost sounds familiar to Zanzibar, which is in Tanzania. I wonder if it's the same
Yeah,
spell.
yeah,
Is
that's
it really okay? Ooh,
it's
okay,
the name. Yeah, it's the name.
okay,
Yeah,
okay. So
that's the
Zanzibar. Okay.
inspiration. It's like an island in Salvador. It's
Wow.
really
I got. I'm gonna Google after this. But
good.
okay, so that's for food. For scenic landscapes, where do you think the most scenic landscape you could find? Which part of Brazil?
Thinking about natural paisages, I would definitely suggest the São Luís,
Okay.
Maranhão. It's over there around the city, close to the city. They have a national park where you have some dunes and some lakes. It's something very impressive with blue water and very beautiful lot of lakes. I mean, very I
Mm,
mean, different lakes around you. It's a very iconic and beautiful landscape.
okay. All right. So St. Louis. And then for relaxation, like I don't want to do anything. I just want to relax and enjoy myself somewhere. Where would you go in Brazil?
I would go to Boipeba. Boipeba is
Oh,
an
what's that?
island that is,
Okay.
yeah, it's this is a gem. This is a gem.
Okay.
It's not very uh, known for foreigners. It's mostly the Brazilians that are going there. It's an island. It takes a journey to get there because there is no car. You just come by boat. Uh, it's distant from Salvador, which was the closest airport to get there. But it's a place where you can relax. It's in front of the sea. There is sea everywhere. Good food around. Great hotels and guest houses, and you stay in a different time zone. I mean, it's
Okay.
completely uh, deconnection for you and connect with the nature. It's beautiful.
Wow. And what's the name again of this island?
Boipeba.
Boy Peppa. Okay. All right.
Boy Peppa. Boy Peppa.
Boy Peppa. I have to practice. So once
Yes,
again,
yes.
don't worry. By the time I get to Brazil, I will know how to say it. But we'll also have on the show notes for anyone who wants to make sure they get these names down. Um, okay, so if I was a solo traveler, because I'm a solo traveler, what's the best place to stay or roam around in Brazil?
Uh, I think Rio is good. I mean,
Mm,
uh, Rio and yeah, Rio de Janeiro is some place that you can easily walk around by yourself. I mean, discover the main places and connect with others if you want. But if not, you can also be walking around. And São Paulo is also a great place for
okay.
solo travels, but it's an urban city. I mean, you there is no paysage or landscapes like nature that would be great. So that's why I suggest mostly Rio.
Okay, mostly Rio. Okay. And then the last one, if someone wants like a unique experience, like I know Brazil has a lot of unique places, but if you want to pick the most unique place for you, that is just like, wow, you're not going to find this anywhere else in this world. Is there any particular place or exhibit or something that is the most unique to you?
Well, uh, this is hard. uh, but I would say a little bias from my side, but I would say it's
Okay.
definitely Salvador is something very unique. And around Salvador, you can see some quilombos. So you can see the island. You can see the waterfalls. I mean, there is something there is a richness in different
Mm,
attractions around Salvador, and but what makes it unique is the rich culture that we have, the people of the city. I mean, you're gonna feel very comfortable. You're gonna feel very connected to them, even if you just met them. So I think the unique experience that you have is to connect with the local people in Salvador.
okay, wow. Okay, so I'm looking forward to that too. Noted. But thank you for playing the game. I know it's a little hard, but you did well. I think a
Yeah,
lot of our listeners and watchers got a lot of notes out of that. But
I think
uh,
I forgot some places that I should have mentioned it, but okay, I
uh,
think it's a good picture.
but if there's anything else, we will have it on the show notes for you, listeners and watchers. We will take care of you. But thank you, Antonio, for gracing us with such an amazing conversation of your lens of the Black history in Brazil. Um, and thank you for everyone for listening to our podcast. Make sure that you share this with anyone who you know would want to come to Brazil or maybe are curious about what they can find Brazil as a Black traveler. Share this podcast episode with them. And make sure to follow us on all social media if you have not followed us yet. We do have our Facebook, Young Black Travelers. We have TikTok, Young Black Travelers. We have our IG handle, Young Black Travelers Blog. We are on Threads, Young Black Travelers Blog. And we also have our website, of course, with vlogs and all other things at youngblacktravelers.com. Now, make sure you are aware of your travels, keep sanitary practices, and just keep safe wherever you go. Again, thank you, Antonio, for such a great conversation.
It's always a pleasure to talk about Brazil and share what we have here, and I mean, invite you guys to come and discover and connect with us. I think there is a lot to learn together from our histories. And
Mm-hmm.
thank you very much for this conversation. It was a pleasure to
Oh,
be here.
pleasure is all mine. And take care, guys. Make sure you visit Brazil. All right, bye.
Bye bye.